You're all familiar with this little furball, aren't you? Kuriboh is one of the oldest and most iconic monsters in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And has since received its own archetype spanning over 20 unique monsters. Ironically, Kuriboh is also incredibly weak, both in the official card game as well as most Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games. But what if there was a game where the opposite was the case? Where for some reason Kuriboh was surprisingly strong? Today, we'll attempt to beat Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monster Coliseum with Kuribohs only. Originally, I planned on beating this game only using monsters from the starting shop, but since that proved to be way too easy, we're taking it up a notch. The rules of this challenge are simple. I can only use Kuribohs in every single battle, I have to beat a campaign from start to finish, I can only use up to 5 Kuribohs in my team, and I'm not allowed to swap them out for more should they get destroyed, and since we only get 3 Kuribohs at the start, I could duplicate them via a second save file to start off with a full lineup, but since we can get 2 more of them as early as the third opponent, there's really no need to. Surely we can defeat Joey and Tristan with a slight disadvantage. And those are the rules. Easy enough, right? Wait, what do you mean you've never heard of this game? Okay, quick rundown. Capsule Monster Coliseum, or CMC, is a spin-off Yu-Gi-Oh! Game for the PlayStation 2. It basically fuses chess elements with Yu-Gi-Oh! Mechanics and combines them into a very enjoyable turn-based strategy game. It's a bit like Duelist of the Roses, just with a stronger focus on the strategy aspect. Instead of cards, you place monster capsules on the field, which you then use to move across the field and destroy your opponent's pieces. Makes sense, right? If you want a longer explanation on what this game is about and why I enjoy it as much as I do, you can check out my other video on it, it's on the top of the screen right now. In short, this game is a lot of fun, but since I played this so many times over the years, I've grown somewhat bored with its rather easy difficulty curve, so it's time for a challenge. Can we beat Yu-Gi-Oh! CMC using Kuribohs only? Let's find out. Before we jump into the first fight, let's cover some basics of this game. In CMC, you choose one of 8 elements as your symbol, which will be your key piece on the board, a bit like the king in chess. If your symbol is destroyed, you lose the fight, and if you destroy your opponent's symbol, you win. Afterwards, you need to create your build by spending your points across 3 different stats. Yes, health is referred to as PP in this game. This is not a joke. MP is the currency you use to buy your first monsters, and AP is used to move your monsters during battles. Then we have to buy our starting monsters. We're only gonna need the 3 Kuribohs here, but the game forces you to buy at least 10 monsters, so we need enough MP to choose the cheapest options. Now it's showtime. Our first opponent is Joey. He's basically the tutorial fight, as Yugi and Yami will explain the various mechanics of this game while we try to win.
Samurai warrior guy. Attack her winged aerobics instructor. Wait, Joey, in this episode, flying monsters have an advantage over land-based monsters for no adequately explored reason.
By the way, I sped up the gameplay during most of these fights because this game runs slow as hell, so don't be surprised if some animations look a bit weird. It's just much easier to play this way. As I mentioned before, you can win a fight by destroying your opponent's symbol. You can also win by destroying all of their monsters instead, but you'll see me prioritize attacking the symbol in some situations, since it warrants some nice bonus XP for our monsters. More on that later. As you can see, each monster has a specific movement pattern and range, while often having a different pattern and range for their attacks. We want to bait Joey into moving in with some of his monsters so that we can attack first. Before we get into the action though, the stage changes. This is supposed to teach us that the stages in this game can alter their properties throughout the fight. Each tile on the map is tied to one of the 8 elements, and since these interact with each other in a slightly more convoluted rock, paper, scissors system, our monster gets powered up or down, depending what kind of field they're standing on. As you can see, the water level rises, which would benefit monsters with the water attribute, but also wood and thunder for some reason. Wasn't there an episode in the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime where Joey and Yugi fight the Paradox Brothers and something similar happens?
The water's actually guiding the attack! Payback time!
Anyway, Joey plays fire capsules, and while they lose attack when standing on water tiles, you can see that they pack quite a punch. Kuriboh can tank one blow, but a second one would result in destruction. Normally this is not a big deal, since destruction means that our monsters cannot be used for the next battle, but are then good to go again. For this challenge though, this would be quite bad, since losing one Kuriboh here would mean that we can only use 2 of them for the next fight. This in turn makes it even more difficult to win the next fight without losing one of them again, which would result in a deadly spiral of always being one monster behind, so to say. This actually makes the first few duels way more interesting than they'd usually be. With some strategic foresight, we are able to take out 2 Fire Reapers without losing any of our soldiers. As you can see here, delivering a killing blow yields a lot more XP than simply attacking. In this game, both your monsters and your symbol level up as you progress. The symbol empowers your monsters when it levels up, while your monsters simply get stronger. They also get more pricey to use though, so it can sometimes be beneficial to not level up already strong and expensive monsters. Lucky for us, Kuriboh is one of the cheapest monsters in the entire game, so we can level up freely. This will be crucial for this run, but once again, more on that later. The rest of the fight goes very well. While 2 of our Kuribohs lure Joey's monsters closer to our side of the field, the third Kuriboh can move around them for a sneak attack on Joey's symbol. We want that bonus XP. A few more rounds and we end the battle with a perfect victory, allowing one of our Kuribohs to instantly level up off of the bonus XP, resulting in an attack gain and a bigger PP size. Amazing. First one down, 24 more to go. Needless to say, I will speedrun my commentary for some of the fights whenever nothing interesting happens. Otherwise, this video would be multiple hours long, and who would want to watch that? If you enjoyed this video so far and want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh content, remember to leave a like, it helps me out a ton. Now let's move on to opponent number 2. Number 2 is Tristan, which is wild considering how bad he is at the actual card game, and Joey is supposed to be the 3rd best duelist in the world or something?
I'd have to say Joey Wheeler is number 3.
Sorry, Yug. Doing this Brooklyn accent makes it difficult to concentrate on card games.
Tristan's stage is all about field effects that actually damage monsters. Except monsters of the corresponding attribute, of course, and as chance would have it, Tristan has just the right attributes in his team. Maybe he is smarter than Joey after all. Luckily, we can just stand back, forcing the AI to approach us, making the damaging terrain mostly obsolete. We can also abuse the fact that Kaminari Kazo can only move and attack diagonally, so we bait it out and destroy it without taking any damage. Easy. We do more or less the same with his remaining monsters, while some of the Kuribohs stride through the thunder fields and go straight for Tristan's symbol. After a few attacks, it falls, and we get that juicy extra XP. One of our Kuribohs hits level 3 and we move on. Duke might be the first truly interesting fight in this run, and might also remain the last fight that is this intense for a while.
Cheap parlor tricks are extremely erotic. Oh yeah.
Oh, he's so smexy.
The reasons are the following. We still only have 3 Kuribohs while Duke plays 5 monsters, so 1 more than our previous opponent. Secondly, our monsters barely outlevel his, which will change as the game progresses, but right now his Kuribohs are basically as powerful as ours. The final reason is his stage. It is very, very compact, so dodging attacks will be difficult and luring individual monsters into choke points to finish them off without any collateral damage is almost impossible. On top of that, our own symbol is much more prone to attacks, as there is no space to back away. Lovely. This time though, we could actually afford to lose a Kuriboh, or maybe even 2, as we can grab Duke's Kuribohs after we beat it. If we destroy them in the process, that is. So let's see what happens. We get into a very advantageous starting position, which was not necessarily planned, but all the more appreciated. After we deal a few blows, it becomes clear that having a Kuriboh at level 3 does make a huge difference, as the increase in Kuriboh's PP size is enough to make it survive 1 more attack before destruction. Very nice. After a few more decent maneuvers, Duke loses 2 monsters while we keep all of them, even though barely. I'll be dead honest here. Immediately after this, I put myself in a rather dire position that does allow me to get a rather easy win, but since I only realize it after making a misplay that would cost me 1 Kuriboh's precious life, I choose to restart the duel and set up in the exact same way, play the duel exactly the same, and luckily the AI also plays along, and then I choose to attack the symbol twice instead of needlessly destroying one of Duke's scorpions. The duel ends quickly after all. We grab 2 Kuribohs from Mr. Devlin and advance, now with a full playset of our little brown furballs, 3 of which are now level 3. Number 4 is Thea, and her fight is not very spectacular. Who would have guessed? She has a few light monsters in her team which have a high baseline defense stat and an advantage over darkness, obviously. This does present some danger to our Kuribohs, so we gotta stay cautious. Since she tends to split her light monsters from the others by going the other way around this taxi in the middle of the map, we shoot straight for the non-light monsters and defeat them without losing a piece. Then we can abuse the fact that her happy lovers have insanely good movement, while Scalandrel has not. We bait out one happy lover and manage to defeat it without further issues. As we approach her symbol aggressively, she gets scared and whistles her last 2 monsters back, but it's too little too late. 2 quick blows to her water symbol and Thea falls. Nice and clean. Opponent number 5 and final opponent of the first stage is our dear Grandpa. Grandpa was always a weird character in this game, as he teaches you the fundamental basics of this game at the very start, only to then completely ignore them in his own lineup. He plays an Earth symbol without a single Earth monster. Instead, he plays 3 Dark monsters that don't benefit from his symbol at all. Weird.
For some reason, playing a card game has caused me to become severely injured.
The fight is not as easy as one might think though. The map is small and narrow, while his monsters all have decent movements and attack range. Winning the fight is easy, but winning it while keeping all of our monsters? A bit more difficult, but we managed to pull through until his last monster, Cockroach Knight. Yeah, who exactly made this pick? Anyway, this thing does pack a punch and forces us into a tough situation. Do we sacrifice one Kuriboh to allow another one to destroy Grandpa's symbol and obtain that juicy level up earlier? We can't grab any more Kuribohs from Gramps, as we already have 5, so we'd have to play the next duel with 1 man down. Quite risky. The other option seems to be more sensible at the moment, which is to play it safe and allow all of our Kuribohs to collect the duel win XP at the end instead, so we go for it. With Grandpa down, we advance to the second stage, which does contain opponents with more specialized lineups and a few stronger units as well. Let's see if our tiny friends can hold their ground against them. Mako is a rather easy fight. His monsters don't have a ton of mobility or attack power, even though his 2 light monsters do tank more hits from our dark monsters. This is the perfect opportunity to show off the reason why a Kuriboh only run could even be attempted in this game. As I said at the start, Capsule Monster Coliseum is a rather easy game. That being said, some of the late game enemies can cause you some trouble, so using only 5 not so strong monsters would be quite a difficult task. The reason why Kuriboh stands out in this regard is its special ability. You see, some monsters gain special abilities once they hit a certain level. The usefulness of these abilities can vary wildly, and Kuriboh happens to have what's probably the most powerful ability in the entire game: Perfect Block. This is a shield Kuriboh can hand out to one nearby monster, including itself, and is unlocked as early as level 4. Once your monster obtains this shield, it blocks 100% damage from the next attack it receives. That's right, a free hit with no time limit, so it lasts until it is used up or until the duel ends, and you can also use it twice per unit. Isn't that completely ridiculous? Paired with the cheap cost of Kuriboh, as well as the PP and attack scaling of darkness monsters, these little fellas are way better than they ever had a right to be. If you want a more detailed explanation and more reasons on why Kuriboh is such a useful piece both in this game as well as its drastically harder Libra mod, Capsule Master A made a nice video on it here on YouTube. You should check it out. With 2 level 4 Kuribohs on the field, this fight becomes even easier than it would have been otherwise. After setting up 4 blocks right from the start, we can lure Mako's monsters towards us and take one of them out very quickly. Then, this happens. That's right, after a few rounds of play, a huge ship bursts out of the sea onto the middle of the field. Pretty wild if you ask me, I was really surprised the first time I saw this as a kid. Anyway, we continue demolishing Mako's pieces, and even summoning his boss monster isn't enough to save him. After blasting through his ranks swiftly, we take out his symbol once again for the juicy XP reward. Next up is Mokuba. It's kind of strange to see Mokuba in action, especially as a tougher opponent than, well, Joey, for example, who's supposedly the third strongest dual monsters player. I'm trying to remember, was there ever a single instance in the original anime where he actually dueled?
Hold it right there, cheaters!
Mokuba's not particularly a threat, as we're about to see. His map is very tight though, so we have to be careful how we use the choke points on these sides. Our blocks allow us to position our pieces as bait, since the first attack will do no damage. This way we can counterattack immediately, and thunder monsters are notorious for having small PP, so we can even one-shot some of them. Due to the tight corridors of this map, I was kind of stuck holding Mokuba's monsters in these choke points for a while, which means that there was no way to reach his symbol quickly. We might have been able to get it at the end, but the potential risk of losing one Kuriboh to his last monster is just not worth it. Once again, we'll play it safe and defeat him by destroying his final monster. Just as I'm reading my script, I'm noticing that we have the third opponent in a row which has a name start with M. We had Mako, Mokuba, Mai. I suppose if you count Grandpa Mudo, it's actually 4 of them. I don't know, just found that interesting. Anyway, back when I was a kid playing this game, Mai used to give me some troubles.
My breasts challenge you to a duel.
She has some very mobile monsters that also have respectable attack values, so definitely one of the more challenging opponents at this point of the game. Also, her stage's OST is amazing. We set up as usual and advance slowly. Mai always summons a few monsters and sends them right off into battle without summoning the others first, so we have to punish that mistake immediately. Since her wind monsters tend to have a lot of defense, there will be no one-shotting in this fight. I'll be honest here, if it wasn't for the perfect blocks, we would very likely have lost at least one of our hairy soldiers in this battle. But this damn ability is just broken. Mai is defeated with no casualties, and we sack in multiple level ups, including one for our symbol. While Weevil is not really an objectively strong opponent, his wood monsters do have solid stats. Fun fact, my first ever run in this game, back when I was something around 10 years old probably, I had been playing the water symbol because I didn't want to choose any obvious elements like light or darkness. My favorite capsule at that point had been my white dolphin. It felt a bit like my own boss monster to me. When I reached stage 2, I immediately went on to fight Weevil, probably because I didn't know that I could choose the opponent's order from here on out, and I lost my first capsule to Weevil, which sadly was my dear white dolphin. It was a tragic event, certainly, until I realized briefly after that when monsters get destroyed, they don't disappear from your collection. They just have to time out for one battle. Young me was relieved, to say the least. This has been the entire reason for doing this challenge. I just want to take revenge on Weevil by defeating him in the most humiliating way possible, only using Kuribohs. That will teach him. We one-shot the first 2 targets immediately, while his Cockroach Knight tanks a hit before also going down. The next one dies quickly too, and his final piece, Rootwater, manages to also take 1 blow before admitting defeat. Again, no bonus XP from the symbol due to risk of losing a Kuriboh, but that's no tragedy. At this point, we already vastly outlevel all of our opponent's monsters, which is basically this game's way of making sure that even the newest of players with horrible early game choices will be able to beat it if they try it a few times. Let's clear the final opponent of the stage. The final opponent for this stage is Rex, not because of his sheer dueling talent, but simply by process of elimination. Rex can be a bit of a threat compared to Mako or Mokuba though, as Earth monsters tend to have quite large PP. I'll keep making these jokes, I don't care. His stage is also pretty cool, and it has a very, very nice soundtrack to go along. When choosing our monsters, you might notice that the game allows us to play up to 8 of them, provided we can afford them with the 600 MP for this stage. Oftentimes, the game will allow you to play as many monsters as your opponent, if not even one more, just to give you a slight edge and a better chance at winning. With this challenge though, we'll start to get outnumbered very quickly from now on. As you can see, Rex plays exactly 7 monsters, so we'll have to do a bit more fighting here. For some reason, lucky for us, this Earth-based opponent plays both lightning and dark monsters, both of which really don't benefit from the Earth symbol. Quite the contrary, actually. Well, it's Rex Raptor after all, so I guess it fits.
And I'll give you a kiss. Cool. Then I
Won't be a virgin anymore.
After one-shotting some of his monsters, he finally brings out his boss monster, and this does look quite imposing, even more so than Marco's Kraken did. Still, we can already dish out around 200 PP per attack, even more on Earth monsters, as we can see with this fella right here, so two-headed King Rex will not stay two-headed for too long. After just one turn, I do eat my words, however, as Rex places his boss monster in the back corner, hiding from our fluffy army of doom. No idea why he chooses this strategy, but we'll gladly take it. We rush towards him with one of the latter, and while Rex's Earth monsters might have big PP, he himself certainly does not. One blow and he's finished.
My dinosaur's horny. Get it?
Our symbol hits level 4, almost maxing out the effect strength stat, which is very good. One Kuriboh hits level 7, and stage 2 is officially cleared. Stage 3 certainly ramps up the difficulty quite a bit. We'll start off with one of the easier opponents, Bakura. He's another one of these enemies with a rather weird monster selection. He's a dark type, but plays 3 dark monsters, 1 earth monster, which is a horrendous choice, and a wind piece as well as a wood piece. I believe this is probably due to his stage design, but I wonder why they wouldn't just turn him into a wind or wood attribute and call it a day. I do like his stage design, but will not stay too long. Honestly, if we didn't have these shields on every single Kuriboh we play, opponents would actually start posing a threat here. I wonder if I should have tried this challenge without using Kuriboh's special ability at all, but then I could have also chosen any other monster really. Maybe even a different element, or maybe just using Exodia pieces. Would you like to see something like this? Tell me in the comments. Anyhow, after a few very harmless brawls, we go for the kill shot on Bakura's symbol and we move on. Next up is Bandit Keith, and while his lineup is not necessarily all that dangerous, there are things to watch out for. His pieces have quite a bit of attack power, and the narrow layout of his stage makes dodging attacks quite difficult. He also has a dark-type boss monster, Barrel Dragon, that packs quite a serious punch, but it is possible to rush Keith and destroy this egg before he hatches it, so let's see how this duel turns out. I also really enjoy the visuals in this fight, they really amp things up for stage 3. For this fight, we can really see how much the initial positioning of your monsters can matter. I deliberately place my Kuribohs further apart because the spots I choose have easier paths around the stage's many obstacles. Kuriboh only moves diagonally, so we need to keep this limitation in mind. First off, we destroy one of his needle balls, even though it has almost 250 PP. Although we're able to break through Keith's defenses very quickly, we are not able to prevent him from summoning Barrel Dragon. Since we did let one of our Kuribohs get dangerously low, I don't want to risk Barrel Dragon running it over before we can destroy Keith's symbol, since it has quite a lot of PP. So we make quick work of Barrel Dragon and cash in a nice symbol level up that allows us to finally max out the effect strength stats and get a bit more starting AP for future fights. Very nice. As our third opponent in the stage, I chose Odeon since we have a direct advantage over his Earth symbol, and he actually plays a good amount of them, so it will come in handy for sure. In this fight, we can finally see how powerful the attribute advantage becomes once effect strength on your symbol is maxed out and your monsters are higher level. We easily dish out 300 plus attacks, while Odeon's one light monster only receives around 120 damage. Crazy stuff. As a result, the fight is over very quickly. Now we get to an encounter everyone's been waiting for. Finally, Pegasus himself blesses us with his godly presence and a beautiful stage with an even more beautiful soundtrack. Seriously, this has always been one of my favorite tunes in the game. Sadly, Pegasus always relied too much on his Millennium Eye and never bothered to actually learn any game properly.
Blah blah blah, attack mode blah. Blah blah blah, blah.
Hence why he also plays a mixture of more elements that are good for him. Maybe he'll learn from his mistake. In all honesty, this fight is a bit of a letdown. Pegasus is a light type, but only plays 2 light monsters, and those are the ones that he sends out last. After destroying everything else in our path, we can simply ignore these 2 and go straight for his symbol. What an easy win against an opponent who should have a strong advantage over us. Well, good luck next time, Maximilian. The final opponent for stage 3 will be Merrick, and I suppose I always view him as the strongest foe in this part of the game, so I tend to put him as late as possible. There are a few reasons why Merrick is a bit more dangerous than his contemporaries. First off, he plays a few dark monsters with high attack values. His monsters also have great range in general, so they can catch you off guard if you don't expect them. Secondly, his map is very awkward to move on. It has these specific gaps between the cubes that some monsters just can't move over or around efficiently. So you have to be careful since, as I just said, his monsters all have good to fantastic movement and attack range. This is, once again, where Kuriboh's special ability breaks the difficulty in half. We can bait out some of his early monsters, tank an attack with the shield, and then counterattack, since we also have a lot of firepower. And this is exactly what happens. This time, though, I make a grave mistake. Between remembering all the possible positions his monsters can land on, and the general strategy of how I want to get rid of them, I forget about Needle Ball, who is able to deal a second attack on one of our unprotected Kuribohs. Always use protection, kids. This marks the first monster loss in this run, which could have almost certainly been avoided, but it is what it is. Stage 4 is not necessarily getting a lot easier than this, so we gotta take time to finish off the rest without losing another one. In the end, Merrick falls, but forever remains the first opponent who could make us bleed. He will be remembered. We enter stage 4, and once more we can choose our next opponent. Ladies first, so we get our hands on Ishizu. Merrick might be pissed that once again his big sister has to step in and sort out his issues with the Pharaoh. Although technically that was the evil spirit of the Millennium Rod, wasn't it? Luckily we don't have to deal with that insane character anytime soon, right?
Sorry, baby, but I'm a rebel. A loner, if you will, and I can't...
Kill your family! Kill your family! Kill your family!
Are you alright?
Anyway, I feel like the maps just stay at a very high level from here on out. Doesn't this look magnificent? I love it. This air temple is rather difficult to maneuver on, so we have to be careful about monster placement and such, especially with one Kuriboh missing. What's really cool about Ishizu is that she plays Katsujin, who is one of the 3 pieces required for Gate Guardian. I've never fused Gate Guardian in this game, but I love that you can do that if you want, and I love that you need to scramble the pieces together from various sources. Just adds a lot of replayability if you really want that monster. Katsujin can be a respectable force in this fight, but our Kuribohs know no such thing, so he goes down in one hit. As time passes, the stage changes visually, making it even more aesthetically pleasing. But we're not such amateurs to let that distract us, so we grind through Ishizu's monsters with ease. However, she does show that stage 4 opponents are not to be underestimated by sneakily moving her Sky Dragon towards our own symbol, which, if you might remember, does not hold a lot of PP. I'll be honest, if I didn't have to keep this one Kuriboh in the back due to the stage's very tight lanes, this might have been major trouble. But since this path is so narrow, there was no way to move all Kuribohs over it at the same time, so one coincidentally had to stay a bit behind. This is enough to distract our Sky Dragon, who dishes out a hard blow onto our little friend, but luckily is not able to tank one himself. Down it goes, and with one monster left on the field, which is Earth type, Ishizu is left without any proper defenses. I do try to chase down her symbol, just for the fun of it, but she refuses to go down without a fight, so her tiger needs to die. We win, she loses. The Ishtar trifecta is finally beaten, and we can move on to the remaining opponents. Didn't I just say the Ishtar saga was over? Someone did not get the memo, apparently.
What, you f*** me? I'd f*** me. I'd f*** me hard.
Of course, the Millennium Spirit version of Merrick has the nerve to advance regardless of our previous victory. So we have to fight him again. Kinda, but not really, I suppose. Make no mistake, Yummy Merrick is no joke, so we need to proceed with caution. This map is quite cool as it has a very engaging mechanic with its floor tiles. Every time you step on one of these box tiles for the first time, the corresponding tile on the opposite side of the field will lower itself into this purple fog that damages all monsters that remain on it. Lovely. At this point, we are rolling up with some max level Kuribohs, so we are heavily outclassing our opponent by numbers alone. His wind monsters are usually supposed to have high defense stats, just like Ishizu's, but our attack power is simply too high and their level simply too low for that to matter. Twin-headed behemoth, two-mouthed dark ruler, wicked dragon with the ersatz head. Damn, a lot of monsters with 2 heads here. They all crumble to dust after one hit. Since I learned my lesson against Marek the last time, we will not risk any of our soldiers just to get some extra XP, especially when we don't even need it anymore. One final blow, Yummy Marek is down, and our final Kuriboh hits max level. Now we're unstoppable. We continue the trend of megalomaniac anime villains, as Yami Bakura also wants a shot at this tournament. Did I even mention that this whole ordeal is supposed to be that? A tournament? Well, now you know. Yami Bakura can be quite a challenge if you play attributes without much defense that are not darkness. This stage buffs dark monsters quite a lot, and there is not much space to move around. This has been the case for quite a few fights now, but they're not all like that, I promise. Some of his monsters also have a lot of attack range, so being especially aware of that is important here. Another thing that makes this fight challenging is his Tri-Horn Dragon, since it has quite a lot of PP on top of high attack stats. This is yet another time where placing your monsters for specific stage bonuses becomes very important. If I attack with this Kuriboh, I do 324 damage, leaving one single PP left, which is of course not good. However, if I use this Kuriboh instead, it does the full 325 damage because it gets powered up by the darkness field it's standing on. This is definitive proof that even one tiny PP can make a difference. Once the big player is out, the small critters follow soon, and this time we can even go for his symbol again. I think at this point it's becoming very evident just how potent the 5 Kuriboh combo is. Next up is Shadi, and his stage has an interesting mechanic. At the beginning, the game forces you to place your symbol in the middle of the map, just like he does. Then, the fight turns into a race of who can rush into the middle first and get a shot at the opponent's symbol. Our PP is quite small, so we have to be fast. This also means that I need to think ahead which Kuribohs should actually use perfect block at the start, since the ability takes away the turn without moving, and I don't want Shadi to defeat us in the first 3 turns because we didn't send out any defenses. After these introductory shenanigans, the brawling starts, and we take a direct hit of one of our fireballs, but luckily it's a rather weak one. Since we don't need any XP nor any of Shadi's monsters, the strategy quickly becomes running after his symbol with as many Kuribohs as we can afford to stay offensive. It seems like Shadi is also not a man of great PP, so the first attack already does significant damage. If he wasn't a light attribute, this would have been enough already, but one more turn, one more attack, and Shadi's down. We move on. I think it's quite fitting that Kaiba is our final enemy for the stage, however I really don't like his map so much. It's just some city ruins, it seems. It doesn't look appealing to me at all. After setting up as usual, we run into his first line of defense. We are still not able to one-shot light monsters it seems, as the elemental disadvantage is simply too strong. After the first Scalangel falls, Kaiba feels the need to show us his big dragon, but don't worry, it won't be standing for long. His blue eyes is quite powerful, so we'll try to use the map's many little towers to dodge his attacks. Since his final 2 light monsters take ages to kill, there is no symbol destruction yet again. What a shame, would have felt even better to do it to Kaiba, but we might get a shot at this a little later. With the main antagonist out of the way and the 4th stage cleared, what could possibly come now? Yeah, you guessed exactly right. A huge tower with a brightly shining crystal shoots straight out of the ground. But wait, which iconic Yu-Gi-Oh characters could possibly be left to serve as the climactic opponents of this game? Well, the first one is Pegasus, once again. It seems like this is a double elimination tournament or something. This time around, he puts on a maniacal laugh for his preview picture. This can only mean good for us. While this stage does not look particularly interesting, it does introduce a new mechanic. Your symbol is placed in the middle of 4 attribute fields. If you place it on one of them, half of the fields on the actual board will turn into that attribute, boosting or weakening the corresponding elements. Pegasus can do the same with the other 4 elements, and he'll typically try to counter you, so position matters even more this time. On top of that, he plays a few light monsters with considerably high stats. However, our Kuribohs seem simply too powerful at this point, so we make quick work of them. Once again, without perfect block, this might have been an actually dangerous fight, but this ability is just too good. Eventually Pegasus falls, and we're off to the next. Ishizu also returns, coincidentally, and also with a much fiercer expression. They all got so serious now, right before the grand finale. Ishizu too always gave me more trouble than her first encounter, and this time she also plays the light attribute. Let's see how we fare. This is one of these maps where the different lanes are so close to each other, if you have high mobility monsters, you can easily jump between them. Ishizu has a few of those, while I wouldn't necessarily describe Kuriboh as such. While she advances pretty quickly, we stay on the back foot trying to find the least vulnerable positions. Her monsters are pretty high in defense, so this will not be a quick fight. In this encounter, I find it really hard to decide how many monsters to put in each of the middle lanes, since she also likes to use the bottom lane for sneak attacks, if you catch my drift. After getting in one measly blow, she opens with 3 attacks, leaving one of our Kuribohs at a dangerously low PP level. While retaliating, it is concerning how her light monsters take 3 whole attacks to destroy. At this point, I'm already sensing trouble, but we managed to remove 2 of them at least. Too little too late, sadly, as immediately after we do lose the first Kuriboh, even though we heavily outlevel her monsters and have the most broken ability on our side. 5 times even. Well, now only 4 I guess. Just goes to show that Ishizu is not to be messed with. After destroying 2 more of her weaker monsters, I noticed that she did in fact do a sneaky one from below. We gotta deal with this, either by rushing in to kill her first, which is quite unrealistic, or by sending one monster back to defend our symbol. Make no mistake, if we lose a second Kuriboh in this fight, this could very much mean the end of this challenge. We'd have to face the 4th opponent of the final stage with only 3 of them, meaning that we'll likely lose another 1 or even 2, and then we'd have to do the very last fight with like 3 or 4 Kuribohs only. This is legitimately a scary duel. I wasn't sure if we'd still get one of those, but at least it's more fun this way. I decide that moving our symbol towards our monsters is more effective than vice versa, and her Genin is luckily not as mobile as some of her other pieces, so it should hopefully work out. She does get an attack in though, but luckily we have quite a big PP now, so we probably have a couple more turns to try and win this. The defending Kuriboh is able to take out Genin with 2 short attacks, and we're finally out of danger. I think at least. Her final monster does get a surprise attack on one of the other Kuribohs, but we can step in and destroy it before it causes any more problems. That was a close one. This has been one of the hardest fights in the whole run, so we gotta give huge props to Ishizu for almost winning this incredibly one-sided battle. However, it is not quite over with the YGOTAS yet. Only 3 more opponents to go, and while Ishizu did give us some trouble, it's looking pretty good, I'd say. Next up is, yet again, Marek, but in his evil form. I'm not gonna lie, his laugh and distorted face were quite scary back when I was a kid.
Curse you, door! From this day forth I swear vengeance! I shall hunt down your kind and murder them into extinction! Oh my god, what's happening to my face? This has never happened before, what the frig?
His volcano stage is also one of the coolest in my opinion. Once the thing erupts, the visuals change so drastically, it's really nice to see. I also love how they change the attributes of most reoccurring opponents. It makes everything way less repetitive. Marek can certainly pose a threat to you here, depending on your attribute and lineup, but his fire monsters are basically always glass cannons. They try to destroy you quickly while having very, very small PP themselves. Perfect Block is a direct counter to this strategy, and Kuriboh's high attack power allows us to one-shot almost all of his monsters. This duel is over in no time, which is great since we had to fight it 1 man down. Marek loses for the 3rd time, which does make me question the organizational qualities of this tournament, and we can continue with all 5 Kuribohs ready for action. Just before arriving at the final encounter, the game throws Shadi at us. Again, but with a different element, of course. The unique thing about this fight is that the game limits the max AP to a laughable 450, which is very little if you bring some strong high-level monsters. But once again, our strategy is mostly unaffected by this, since Kuriboh is dirt cheap in this game, and even Perfect Block only costs 150 AP, which is alright. I really like Shadi's second stage, and the soundtrack for it is absolutely magnificent. The giant dragon statue in the middle occasionally breathes fire of any given element onto the field, damaging every monster with a different attribute and empowering the whole stage accordingly. They really had some great ideas with these stage mechanics, but sadly most of them hit like wet noodles and can mostly be ignored. Definitely some missed potential here. I line up all 5 Kuribohs in one defensive line, taunting Shadi to see if he can somehow break through, but of course I know that he most likely can't, as our army has simply grown too powerful. His final piece shatters against our impenetrable wall of hairy balls, and we move on to the final fight of this game with our whole team intact. Okay, so what do you think who the final boss in this game is? Is it another round against Marek? Perhaps Bakora's third appearance? Maybe some of the other weird villains of the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Saga? No, it's the craziest one of them all, Kaiba himself. Again. Seriously though, all of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Villains in the first part of the anime are absolutely batshit insane in their own rights. I'm probably gonna make some videos taking a closer look at them. Which one of them do you like best? Which one of them would you like me to cover first? Make sure to tell me below. The final fight takes place on an airship with giant light crystals placed all over it, amongst other things. I wonder if these have anything to do with the weather.
In another few hours, the sun will rise. What the does that mean?
For this fight, and this fight only, the game gives us infinite MP to choose up to 10 monsters and 999 max AP to go along. They really want this to be an all-out finale. For some strange reason, Seto plays quite a hefty mix of various elements, including fire and water, both of which have nothing to do with his attribute. Try to make any sense of that. As I said, absolute insanity.
What in the flying blue crap is that? It's my own personal Blue Eyes jet. Jealous, Yugi?
Now listen, I could have made this fight more engaging by simply rushing into open field and truly test our 5 monsters against his 8, but I was not sure enough we'd actually win this way, so I wanted to keep it safe. We move towards the middle, but position ourselves so that Kaiba has to extend a bit further. While tanking some of his attacks, we manage to defeat his pieces one by one. Ultimately, the weather changes and the crystals on board turn into darkness crystals, meaning that we have a few more attack points up our sleeves now. As his first blue eyes falls, we move in closer and closer. He tries to counterattack, but it's all meaningless. His second and last blue eyes falls, we destroy all of his pieces, shy of this one single earth monster that of course does the least damage to our dark monsters, and then we can take our time to finish Kaiba off by destroying his symbol. It just feels more personal this way. He attempts to evade, but it's all in vain now. The deadly Kuribohs hunt him down, his symbol falls. Kaiba loses, and once more Yugi proves himself as the uncontested king of games. Yes, you can beat Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monster Coliseum only using Kuribohs. It's not only possible, it's actually quite easy if you know what you're doing. Except maybe for a few encounters where you really have to pay attention. After playing this game again, I'm reminded of how much potential there was in this title. They put so much effort and budget into making this weird spin-off game. Had they had more time or perhaps better direction, they could have added a few more features to increase replayability by a multitude, but sadly this is not how it went. If you like this game, or if you want to try it out after watching this video, I highly recommend the one and only mod that exists for it, the Libra mod. It's way tougher than the regular game and really forces you to learn the mechanics and make difficult decisions in each fight, but it's a ton of fun. Folks, thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun blasting through a very nostalgic game from my childhood, and if you want to learn more about this game, make sure to check out this video essay I made about it. If you're interested in more Yu-Gi-Oh! Content, both in terms of shorter essays and longer challenge videos like this one, make sure to like this video, it helps me out a ton, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you don't miss any future uploads. I hope you had as much fun as I did, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.